And we're not going to get into the extinction part. I'm going to focus, as a humanist, more on the PropTech side, the innovation that we're looking at from a venture capital perspective, and then dive into what we think, what we've been using and deploying in AI, in housing, in the built world, and then what we would like to do. So this might move fast. Let's see. Nice. Woo. So yeah, it's going to be kind of like a baptism by fire within the PropTech and real estate innovation space, so bear with me. We've got a lot to cover, short amount of time. So first off, though, I'm going to get more of the introductions and level set from the PropTech industry. And just for context, MetaProp is one of the first venture capital firms investing in PropTech. We're the largest early stage investor, and I'll get further into what that means for the greater real estate innovation space. And then we'll focus more on our innovation thesis for affordable housing, why we are investing, and why we recently completed a major study with Columbia University on affordable housing, the problems we're focusing on, and what we want to invest in. Then I'll get into the current state of affordable innovation, the players involved, and the companies that are currently solving and working on this today. So you could take away with a few companies you might want to talk to. I could happily introduce you, notwithstanding my portfolio companies. Then we'll dive a little deeper into permitting and pre-construction, which are critical parts of the value chain. And then lastly, I'll talk about the intersection of AI and affordable housing. So with that, we'll move away. So just for the first start of the presentation is we are at the intersection of innovation and industry. So we're born at the nexus point of real estate practitioners. So all of us at MetaProp all worked in real estate, whether on the research, investment, leasing, construction side, and then realized that eventually there would be this confluence of technology meeting real estate. So that's why we launched our funds to invest in property technologies and then partnered up with industry specifically. So you can see lists of all of our lovely logos of our LPs, and this represents right around 20 billion square feet owned, operated, and managed real estate across the globe. And we've invested anywhere from sub-Saharan Africa to Latin America, Asia, North America predominantly, but across the entire value chain. So this is what we represent in the sandbox that we play with, and we invested in over 176 companies. We track over 10,000 to date and see about 200 every month that we have to sift through. So that's the volume and the purview that we come from. And I think this is really critical, especially as we get further on to talk about the AI portion of how we set up the taxonomy and the life cycle of an asset. And every single one of the jobs, this is how we look at it from what we need to solve for, the various problems, various areas, and the opportunities that you can invest in. So we define it as dirt to disposition. So before you even look at where you potentially are going to invest in, the compliance and the governance institutions, the lending you have to get into, and all the players in between. We're also asset type agnostic, and as I mentioned, globally focused. So we like to look across the globe and share learnings between investors and innovators. And very simply, our process, as any venture capital would like to think that they're doing, is to see it all early, select the best when you go early, best founders, people that are problem obsessed, and then accelerate adoption, because ultimately the customer is who's investing with us in our funds, and then we have direct connection there. So, I know it's a quick tout of a lot of our work, but we, my founders wrote a book called PropTech 101. It's kind of the shameless tout of their work, but we also run the Global PropTech Confidence Index, which is all the investors and what they're thinking about, what they're feeling as it comes to their portfolio companies. We run the innovation aspect for MIPIM, which is one of the largest real estate events in Cannes, and now also recently launched MIPIM New York. And then we run New York Real Estate Tech Week. So it's a large community, and we like to be at the center point, but really it's about embracing and lifting us all up together. So we work with a lot of the other VCs and strategic investors in the category. And very simple model to why we think this is really important and why I think it's kind of relevant for the folks today is people think through there's so much out there. What could we possibly do? And is there ever an end? The fact on innovation, it never ends. It is a full cycle. You have to constantly be searching and looking internally, auditing yourself, looking for other partners that you can work with, and then deploying that directly. And also at some points where you can invest into those companies and groom them throughout the rest of your portfolio. So this is the cycle that we work on and our process. And very quickly, we run 5 fund vehicles, mostly driven by strategic capital. And we see ourselves and have measured ourselves as a top decile in terms of returns from our investment process, as we truly are a venture capital firm, so I have to show it. But getting deeper into this is where we talk about more of the problem-obsessed side. So where we see is that it's global housing is a crisis, as Olivia mentioned and highlighted. That's why we're all here today. Even in the U.S., 4 to 5 million homes are needed to close the housing gap. So where we see this is a major opportunity for us to solve for the inefficiencies across the affordable housing sector. And this is how we're thinking about it from an investor standpoint of how we're thinking about what are the indicators that make this a company that's actually addressing affordability. So the impact indicators and then the financial indicators for that company to be successful. So our current state, I think it's important, and probably this will be shown throughout the entire conference, but all the players that are involved, this is how we think about it. This is why it's a highly complex problem, but you have to maintain this view of everyone that's engaged and relevant to it in order to solve. So all players have to be involved to solve the problem. So it's a balancing act, and in many ways, a very network play that we have to constantly think about and deploy. So this is the existing PropTech companies, or at least the PropTech approaches for solving for affordability. So new paths to home ownership. So like in the US, it's the number one way that people achieve wealth is through home ownership, and new alternative means of financing that. And whether that's on the credit side or at least on the rent-to-own models. So this evolves onto the new approaches to renting and providing financing and liquidity to renters. And then innovations in construction, so reducing costs across the board, whether we're talking modular, prefab, or reducing the friction on permitting. The construction side is a major part. We have about 40% of our companies are dedicated to construction tech. And then improved management software, so really just establishment of workflow tools, which again, the AI world or AI platforms can help improve even further on that. And on the venture side, over $7 billion has been invested into PropTech companies solving for affordability. I think I mentioned this in the pre-session. If anyone solves for affordable housing, you will be a billionaire. So this is kind of a call to action as a VC. But kind of a cross-section of the companies, as I mentioned. So shared equity. So this is kind of like co-living, but shared equity where you have this is where landed and home pace. Then you have rent-to-own and flexible equity. We invested in a couple of companies here, like Landis is another great example. Co-buying, co-living. So this is the different versions and set cross-sections of companies that have been engaged here. I think quickly into this, I think everyone who's working on the development side, and anyone from the bricks and sticks world can agree to these statements that the current state of permitting is relatively broken. It's fragmented. There's multiple approval agencies. The code environment needs massive upgrades. And then you have a lot of municipalities who say, we'll never get a system, we'll never upgrade. So what do we do about that? This is a cross-section of engaging the private side and the public sector to just meet in the middle and find ways of improving the process. And cui bono, making sure that everyone's benefiting from an upgrade of a system in this highly fragmented market. So this is how we're thinking myopically around solving for the permitting side. And just a couple scary stats. Well, not as scary as non-existence, but still pretty scary. So 40%, we've measured about 40% of the cost goes to the regulations in permitting and zoning. So this is where the costs are going to. So if we can find ways of eliminating or reducing that cost, that can lead to larger amount of supply and quicker delivery of product. Simply put, there's over 19,000 jurisdiction permitting districts in the US alone. So if you think of every other nation, if we can solve for or attempt to solve in the US, what can we do to improve that, or at least have maybe potentially some way of uniting all these different systems and jurisdictions? So even 11% of your total building costs go with complying with code, and then 10,000 pages of codes per jurisdiction. So if you think about all those pages you have to read, perhaps this is where the AI inputs or generative AI can help at least expedite that. So this is some pretty interesting companies I just want to highlight. They're currently solving or working on affordable housing, but more on what they're doing for the permitting and zoning portion. They're not really, I would say, I'm going to say with confidence, they're not using AI, but they're going to be embedding that into their processes for the technologies. So a couple ones to highlight. Ultraground is reading out the data from zoning meetings and then relaying that back to developers so they can see what the decisions are being made. Pulley is pulling out the systems of the permitting process and trying to streamline that. And then PropTech Housing does affordable housing compliance and leasing. So in Permaflow, Poly, all of these things, and they're partnering up from the private side, but then dedicating themselves to the local municipalities. And now to the meat of it, which is why we're on this panel today, for the intersection. So this is kind of the scariest statement, but it's really kind of the hot topic. I mean, every now and then we got some really great hot ones that come through, but Genera has been really interesting and impactful that it has, and we focus really on the large language model, so that it's been trained on trillions of inputs to then give us this output and then have the ability to understand at a human level. So semantic understanding at a human basis, which is really exciting because that means basically you can hire several different analysts that are experts in it and just using this tool to then generate your outputs. So got a whole team of analysts as the tips of your finger. So this is where we think of it as being impactful for the real estate industry. So where it could be on pricing optimization and property valuation. So taking disparate sources of information and at least standardizing that at a large level. Predictive maintenance and energy management. So predicting when perhaps that your HVAC system is going to start failing. We've got enough inputs to understand when that might potentially happen and to warn the teams so they can deliver faster and reduce that friction. Property management, as we'll get deeper into what that can mean, as those who've dealt with your property management teams. Risk assessment, fraud detection, visual property tours and staging. Those who've probably even seen that. Actually, Olivia highlighted a couple examples of the visualization. And then personalized property recommendations. And a lot of this can also really be impactful when it comes to what you can afford, and it can be personalized and set up for you. So think of these impacts across the affordable housing sector. And this is lovely saying of how much the AI market is going to grow to. So about, let's say, nearly 118 billion next 15 years or so. But this is more or less the opportunity to which that we can embrace it or at least leverage it for solving our real built world problems. So the three areas that we really are using, or at least starting to apply that, and actually in truth, we have for the last 5 years and a bunch of our companies have been leveraging AI. So marketing, conversational AI, and search. So the marketing applications, it's really just around the content generation that you're already making. So you can use AI to generate content a lot faster. Helps agents, helps the tenants, the residents. So it goes all the way through personalized content, market analysis, multilingual content. Has anyone's ever deployed technology and had to do localization? It's very tricky. It's just near impossible, especially when it comes to the currency side, the language side. So AI is actually allowed to deliver that because it learns across languages. And then image models, as Olivia had already showed. I wish I put more pictures. It would have been more fun. And then the conversational applications. So this is exciting from the lead generation, the availability of your property managers. So the right response. So if anyone's trying to change their flight, you used to text a bot. The bots are now going to be in place for identifying and finding and searching properties, or even engaging with your property manager. And the search side, this is interesting from a underwriting standpoint. So the semantic search can start to recognize things around the property. One of my great mentors in real estate often said that he wanted to get rid of the Class A, Class B system because real estate, or it's in the eye of the beholder. So what if we could teach programs to understand the value of that property and then bring that right back to the appraisal side to give a much more of a normalized version of appraisals. So that's the impact of semantic meaning into AI for the real estate perspective. A couple of our companies have been doing this for, frankly, years. So Actuate.ai, which uses a weapons detection program. So if someone walks in a building, it has a smart camera which can pick up if someone is concealing a weapon in their clothes using AI. Onsite IQ does milestone management with cameras, walks through a construction site, it picks up when something's been actually installed and built and developed, and then can tell you when that's been happening and if there's going to be an issue later on. And then BetterView can even tell you the age and style and replacement value of any roof. Stage Glass uses that for virtual renderings. Honestly, you can't tell the difference of a Stage Glass image and a real photo. We found it impossible. And then Travis has been doing that for property management discussions back and forth between the residents and their vendors. And this might be my call to action, which, again, I think would be kind of exciting. What we would like to do is build a semantic understanding of all of, and if someone could build this, it would be really lovely, but this is what we're looking for to potentially develop, a standardized process across all of the jurisdictions. So almost what we want to have is a Stripe for permitting and zoning, where it can read response and all the transactions can happen off of it. And you can definitely develop this through running the models that can speak back to the zoning departments and then send you an automated response. So this is where we think is going to be a future investment and what we're hoping will be built within the next few months using and leveraging the technology of AI. So with that, I think we're solid on my side. If we want to switch over.